Your brother's baby shower was just perfect. Grandpa crowed, tapping his fork to his glass for attention. Now when will you finally start a family? The laughter was soft, but it cut. Shame can sound like silverware, like a polite cough. It can arrive dressed as a joke and leave as a bruise. Hi everyone, my name is Rowan Hale. I'm 29, and I learned early that in this house, love wears a scoreboard. I was the wrong column, too busy, too stubborn, too late. And if you're still here with me, breathe. I promise the air gets clearer. I smiled and said, I did, just didn't invite anyone who treats me like a failure. Grandpa's fork trembled, a skinny metronome counting down to the part where everyone remembers their lines. Mom's smile froze first. It was the smile she used at church when the soloist went flat, merciful, mortified. Dad's eyes flicked to the tree, as if the solution were tucked behind the ornaments. My brother, Evan, pulled his fiancée a little closer, like I might steal her sparkle simply by standing tall. The dining room smelled like cinnamon and performance. Pine needles glittered under the chandelier. A string of warm lights hummed against the window, reflecting a table staged like an apology, white plates, cranberry sauce beaming like a wound, roast beef sweating under a halo of steam. My seat card read Rowan, vegetarian, in neat loops, which was funny because nobody had remembered to make anything for me anyway. Rowan, Mom began, voice gauzed with concern, no one here thinks you're a failure. We just want, what's best. What's best, I repeated, tasting the words. They were dry as stale gingerbread. Grandpa cleared his throat, a papery sound. It's not complicated, he said. Family means babies. Family means legacy. Legacy. In this house, it meant monogrammed blankets for Evan's nursery and a budget line for his stroller while my promotion lived in a group chat nobody opened. It meant whispering that my deadlines were excuses, and his were ambition. It meant Mom crying when I didn't fly home for a brunch, and going silent when I sent her the lease to my first apartment. Family meant everything when it came to Evan. For me, it meant a soft, constant question, why aren't you enough? I steadied my napkin on my lap. The linen was heavy, like a quiet promise. I let the room listen to its own breathing, to the clink of ice in the water pitcher, to the carol whispering from the living room speaker, all is calm, and wondered who that song had ever been written for. I started a family, I said again, gentler. I just stopped asking you for permission. Evan laughed, a thin, pretty sound. With who, Ro? Your to-do list. The table chuckled on cue. I looked at Grandpa, the fork still quivering, and reached into my coat pocket where something small and red pressed against my palm, warm from my skin, waiting. I set it on the table, right next to his plate, where the gravy bled into it like a horizon at dusk. A knitted baby mitten. One. Tiny as a secret. Bright as a siren. Silence fell with the softness of snow, and every light on the tree seemed to hold its breath. The mitten sat there like a dare, its red yarn brighter than the cranberry sauce beside it. Nobody moved. Grandpa's fork stilled midair, his knuckles white. The silence was louder than any hymn I'd ever heard in this house. Evan finally broke it with a laugh that didn't quite land. Rowan, come on. Is this, what, a joke? You knit yourself a prop for attention. His fiancée shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. I saw it then, how quickly doubt becomes entertainment when you're the family clown. But I didn't flinch. My hands stayed folded in my lap, calm, though my chest felt like a church bell being rung too hard. It isn't a joke, I said quietly, the way you tell a dog not to bite. I don't owe you a calendar invite, but I owe myself peace. Mom's lips parted. Her lipstick smudged onto her teeth, but she didn't notice. Rowan, why wouldn't you tell us? A baby, this is monumental. How could you? Because, I cut in, eyes on her, the last time I told you something important, you called it selfish. Remember when I said I was moving across the country for my job? You cried like I'd died. Evan got a new job 2 months later and you bought champagne. Do you understand how that feels? The room stiffened. Even the string lights seemed to dim. Dad cleared his throat, that old lawyer's trick to claim the air. Rowan, let's not make tonight hostile. We can talk about hostile. My laugh cracked sharp. Hostile is calling me broken because I didn't fit your blueprint. Hostile is years of being measured against Evan like I was a science project gone wrong. Evan leaned back, smirking. So what, you went and had a kid out of spite? The mitten burned between us. My throat tightened, but my voice didn't waver. Not spite. Love. Something this room has never offered me without conditions. A sharp clatter, the fork finally dropped from Grandpa's hand, landing against the plate like a gavel. Judgment Day had begun. Grandpa's fork clattered onto the china, the sound splitting the air like thunder against stained glass. All eyes turned to him, waiting for his decree, as if his word could still shape destiny. His lips pressed thin, his jaw trembling, but for once, he had nothing to say. It was Evan who filled the silence. This is ridiculous, he scoffed, leaning forward, his voice sharp with the confidence of the favored child. Rowan, you're trying to spin a story because you couldn't stand watching me celebrated. Admit it, this is about stealing attention at Christmas. The words slid across the table like knives, cutting me open in places scarred since childhood. My cheeks flushed hot, but I didn't shrink. I let his accusation hang, then looked him dead in the eye. You think everything is about you, Evan. Maybe that's the real joke. His fiancée flinched, shifting away from him, her hand falling from his arm. Mom gasped softly, pressing her napkin to her lips. Rowan, she whispered, you can't speak to your brother that way. Not tonight. I turned to her, my voice steady but edged with steel. Why not tonight, Mom? Isn't this the perfect night? You chose to humiliate me on birthdays, on graduations, at every dinner table I ever sat at. Why should Christmas be different? Dad's chair scraped back, his voice rising. Enough. This is family business, not some stage play. But it was a stage. It always had been. The chandeliers were the spotlights, the long polished table a runway of grievances. And I was done auditioning for their approval. I reached for my glass of water, watching the condensation slide down like sweat, my voice calm. You want truth? The mitten isn't a metaphor. It belongs to someone real. Someone I love more fiercely than this family ever loved me. The room inhaled sharply. Evan's face twisted, readying another barb. But before he could speak, Grandpa finally found his voice, thin, trembling, and laced with disbelief. You have a child. The question wasn't just for me. It was an indictment, a verdict disguised as curiosity. And in that fragile moment, I held all the power. Yes, I said simply. The word floated above the table, light but unshakable. I have a child. The chandelier flickered, or maybe it was my eyes blurring from the heat of their stays. Evan laughed, hollow and sharp, like glass breaking in an empty room. You're lying. You think flashing a mitten makes you a mother? Where's the proof, Rowan? Where's this supposed child? I didn't blink. Safe. Loved. Away from this toxicity. Mom's hand gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles straining pale. You hid a grandchild from us. Her voice trembled between outrage and fear. How could you? How dare you? I set my glass down carefully, the ring of water blooming on the tablecloth. I dared because I learned. Learned that telling you anything sacred meant giving you a weapon to use against me. Learned that love here comes with strings, with ledges. I wanted my child to know freedom before they knew judgment. Dad stood now, his shadow stretching long across the plates and candles. This is nonsense. You can't just. Can't just what? I cut in, my voice slicing clean. Can't just choose myself? Can't just refuse to raise another human under your constant measuring stick. Evans slammed his palm on the table, making the cranberry dish quiver. Admit it. You're making this up to ruin our Christmas. The words hit me like every Christmas past. Every year I was the afterthought, the extra chair no one wanted to set. I leaned forward, close enough that he could see the fire in my eyes. I don't need to ruin Christmas, Evan. You all did that years ago, when you decided my worth was measured by how fast I could give you something to brag about. The silence was different this time. Not disbelief. Not confusion. It was the silence of a curtain lifting, of something rotten exposed to the light. Grandpa's fork trembled again, but his voice was low. If what you say is true, then you've betrayed us. I held his stare, unflinching. No. I ended the cycle. And that's the part you can't forgive. The tree lights glimmered like 100 watchful eyes, and in their glow, I saw their empire of control cracking. The air thickened, heavy with the weight of generations pressing down. Grandpa's words clung like cobwebs. Betrayal. That was their weapon now. Not love. Not apology. Betrayal. Evan smirked, seizing the silence. You hear that, Ro? Even Grandpa knows. You turned your back on us. You've always been selfish, now you've proved it. Selfish. That word had been welded to me since childhood. Too selfish to share my toys, too selfish to skip Evan's recitals when I had my own competitions, too selfish to move away, to breathe differently, to exist outside their shadow. Tonight, selfish meant I chose peace over their suffocating approval. I straightened, the chair creaking beneath me. No, Evan. Selfish is expecting the world to orbit you while everyone else burns in your sun. Mom gasped as if struck, tears threatening her mascara. Rowan, stop this. Please. Don't tear this family apart. I almost laughed. Tear it apart? It was already splintered, years of cracks hidden under garland and tablecloths. I just happened to point at the fracture line. Dad's voice was colder now, loyally. If you truly have a child, we'll need to discuss custody rights, guardianship, inheritance. These aren't decisions you can make alone. The audacity nearly stole my breath. Custody? You think you have a claim over a life you didn't create, didn't nurture, didn't even know existed. His lips pressed thin. We are family. Legacy matters. I leaned across the table, my voice dropping low, trembling with restrained fury. Legacy doesn't excuse cruelty. My child doesn't need your name, your money, or your validation. Evan scoffed again, louder this time, desperate to reclaim his stage. Fine. If this kid exists, where's the other mitten? Where's the father? Or is this another one of your half-finished projects, like every dream you've ever had? The insult cut deep, old scars reopening, but I didn't let him see the wound. Slowly, deliberately, I reached into my coat pocket once more. Their eyes followed, wide, greedy, hungry for proof. I placed another object on the table, this time, not yarn, not metaphor. A photograph. A child's face. Small, bright-eyed, alive. Gasps filled the room like shattered glass raining down. The photograph lay between the wine glasses and half-eaten roast, its edges curling under the heat of the candles. My daughter's face, round cheeks, a curious smile, stared up at them, unashamed, unbroken. The room froze. Mom's hand shot forward, trembling as she reached for the picture. I stopped her with just a glance. Don't, I said softly. You don't get to touch what you've already dismissed. Her lips parted, words quivering. Rowan, she's beautiful. Why would you hide her from us? Because beauty wilts under cruelty, I answered. And I wasn't about to let her grow up thinking love feels like mockery. Evan scoffed, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. This could be anyone's kid. Probably a friend's. You expect us to just believe you. I tilted my head, studying him. Believe me or not, Evan, it changes nothing. She's mine. She exists. And she will never be another pawn in your perfect child performance. Grandpa cleared his throat, voice rasping like old paper. A child belongs to the family, Rowan. To keep her from us is unforgivable. I leaned back, folding my arms, letting the tension coil tighter. A child belongs where she is safe. Blood doesn't guarantee that. If it did, I wouldn't have spent my life being compared, diminished, erased. Dad's face darkened, his tone firm, final. You're making a mistake. If you think you can cut us out, you'll regret it. Family isn't something you choose. I let the silence hang, heavy as snowfall. Then I smiled, cold and quiet. That's where you're wrong. I did choose. I chose her. And in choosing her, I chose to end every chain you tried to wrap around me. The tree lights flickered again, shadows leaping across their stunned faces. My daughter's photo gleamed on the linen like a declaration, untouchable. For the first time in years, I felt taller. Stronger. The balance of power had shifted, subtly, but irrevocably. Evan's voice cracked the silence, thin with desperation. So what now, Rowan? You parade this secret, drop your bomb, And then what? Expect applause. I met his eyes, steady as ice. No. I expect you to listen, for once in your life. They leaned forward like it was a jury and I was the only defendant. I could see the calculations flick across their faces, hurt, anger, opportunity, each one trying to convert my truth into currency. Mom's voice broke first, small and frantic. Rowan, you can't shut us out. We're family. We can help. Help, I echoed, tasting the word. Their help had always come with conditions, obedience, appearances, explanations that fit the story they wanted to sell. No thanks. I won't let my daughter be taught that love is conditional. Dad's jaw worked. You think this is about control? It's about responsibility. We can provide stability. Stability. I laughed, sharp as the snap of tinsel. You call smothering and scoring my choices stability. Evan's face reddened, his posture was all entitlement and a little wounded pride. If you won't let us be involved, you're denying her family. You're being dramatic. I leaned in so close my breath fogged the corner of his vision. I am not denying her family. I am protecting her from the kind of family that teaches her to measure herself against someone else's success. Grandpa's eyes, usually sleepy, sharpened with accusation. You're isolating her. What kind of life will that be? A life where she learns to be seen for who she is, not for the scorebook you keep, I replied. She will know her worth without your approval. They tried the old tactics then, pity, bargaining, veiled threats about inheritance and reputation. Dad hinted at lawyers. Evan offered conditional visits, an offer wrapped in performance. I listened to each attempt like someone cataloging weapons. I had anticipated each move, I'd planned for it the way a surgeon plans for complications. When they finished, exhausted from their own righteousness, I reached into my bag and placed a small envelope on the table. Inside, a notarized letter naming my daughter's guardian, someone far from their reach, and a clause that would trigger legal protection if anyone tried to interfere. The paper sat quiet, heavier than any gossip. I didn't gloat. I simply said, I won't let the past steal her future. Outside, a carol drifted in through the window, soft, almost shy. The notes wrapped around the room like a benediction or a promise. For the first time that night, I felt the future breathe back at me. The envelope glowed pale under the chandelier, its presence undeniable. My father's hand hovered as if he might seize it, but he didn't. None of them did. For once, their certainty had dissolved, replaced by the uneasy silence of people who finally understood they had no power here. Evan slumped back, muttering, "This is insane," but his voice lacked conviction. His fiancée stared at me with something almost like respect, maybe envy. Grandpa kept his eyes on the photo, his fork abandoned, his empire of tradition crumbling in the quiet. I spoke slowly, my voice steady, deliberate, every word chosen. You wanted legacy. You wanted control. But what you gave me was emptiness, a hunger to be seen. I won't pass that hunger on. My daughter will know she is enough from the moment she wakes to the moment she sleeps. Mom's tears slid silently, streaking her makeup. For the first time, I didn't reach across to comfort her. I let her cry, because those tears weren't for me, they were for the mirror I'd just held up to her. The tree lights flickered, casting the room in shifting gold. I rose, my chair scraping softly, final as a curtain call. This Christmas, I gave myself the only gift worth keeping, freedom. You can choose to stay in your cage of expectations. I'm done living there. No one stopped me. No one called after me. The house that had once kept me small sat hollow behind me as I stepped into the cold night air. Snow drifted gently, catching in my hair, clean and unburdened. I clutched the photo to my chest, the mitten tucked safely back into my pocket. For the first time, Christmas didn't ache. It sang.